welcome once again. I'm Imran Garda and you are in the stream. Today, crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why the world isn't talking about the deadliest conflict since World War II. As always, our digital producer, Ahmed Shihabuddin, is here looking out for all your live feedback, Ahmed. And of course, joining him on the couch is Hollywood actor Robin Wright, the star of films such as The Princess Bride and Forrest Gump. Robin, you've been very active in raising awareness about rape as a weapon of war in the DRC. I understand that you just returned from Eastern Congo. Tell us a little bit about why you went and what you experienced.
I went because I wanted to finally put a face to the conflict that I had been hearing about for about 5 years. And it was truly the most informative, devastating, emotional experience I've ever had in my life, to actually travel to the location of the deadliest war since World War II.
Mm-hmm. Look forward to hearing some of your thoughts and experiences as we discuss this, the smaller and the bigger issues, and all of these issues intertwined in this unbelievable mess to a great extent. Next to Robin is Fidel Bafilembe is with the Enough Project. Robin, you were with the Enough Project and with Fidel, and we're going to look at some footage a little bit later on where the two of you were together in Eastern Congo. Fidel, welcome to the stream. Tell us why it's so important for the world to know about what's going on in the DRC.
Well, as you have put it, it's been over 5 million people died over the conflict in Congo. And while we have a lot of issues back in the Congo, corruption, unaccountable government, everything, but the key driver to this conflict has been the conflict minerals. Today we can be on Twitter, I can be on this show with these beautiful, wonderful equipments, but they are being fueled by what we call blood, chaos, conflict minerals that are being mined back in the Congo.
Yeah, we're going to get into that now and look at the root causes of the conflict and the issues that actually perpetuate the conflict. So good to have you both on the program over the next 25 minutes. If you include the post show, over the next 35 minutes, we can discuss all of this. Now, remember, you can check out our Facebook page where you'll find more info on our stories, and you can send us your comments, your suggestions, your questions, and anything else you think we need to know.
Well, thousands of protesters took to the streets in Syria on Thursday, marking 6 months of anti-government protests. But in addition to challenging their president, Bashar al-Assad, they're now also taking aim at countries they see as enabling their government's crackdown. Now, Russia's state arm exporter, Rosoboron Export, has ignored calls from the US and UN to halt arm deliveries to Syria. Instead, they're announcing that exports will continue. Now, using this hashtag behind me, shame on RU, we've found and also been able to pull up dozens of photos and videos showing Syrians condemning Russia's president both on the ground in Syria and online. Now, this tweet right here from Arabica11 was addressed directly to Medvedev. It says at the top, this poster is a gift from the people in Syria, and then, on the actual photo, it says, stop playing Russian roulette with our children. Now, you can see Medvedev is depicted with a gun in his hand, and in the original photo, the face of a dead 12-year-old boy had appeared right here, but we decided to block it out due to its graphic nature. Now, also, there's this video, another video right here that came in to us, one of many, reportedly filmed in Hama on Wednesday. It's one of dozens, again, that appears to show protesters burning the Russian flag. Let me just play a little clip from this video for you to give you a sense of what's going on the ground. So they're burning the Russian flag as they chant Allahu Akbar, right there. But also on Wednesday, Russia's president warned that terrorist organizations, quote, could rise in Syria if President Bashar al-Assad were to fall. That was just, that was just one of many stories that you've been suggesting to us from the community. So here are some of the other ones that you're following on Twitter.
Now, not a day goes by without the world hearing about the Iraq and Afghanistan wars and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But the global mainstream media has not talked much about the world's deadliest conflict in the past 6 decades. It has been called by many Africa's World War. And as we mentioned, it's happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. More than 5 million people have perished as a result of a civil war that started in 1998 between government forces supported by Angola, Namibia and Zimbabwe and rebels backed by Uganda and Rwanda. Of course, it initially started as a spillover from the genocide in Rwanda itself, and that conflict officially ended in 2003 in Congo. But violence continues, and large tracts of the country are still in the hands of various militias. Now, one of the worst consequences of the conflict has been the systemic sexual assault and violence against women. As we mentioned a few minutes ago, Robin Wright was in Eastern Congo meeting with some of the victims. Let's show you a few moments from that visit.
They do not have offices.
Robin, take us through some of that. A hospitable visit from these women in Eastern Congo, but they had no doubt gone through a whole lot.
You know, and to use the term victim, I'd like to get to them before they're victims. We were actually meeting with survivors every day. This was a community of widows, husbands abducted from the home, recruited by the militia. They're left vulnerable. Most of them, if not all of them, were raped numerous times and have had multiple surgeries trying to rebuild their insides. And then they bring them to these rehabilitation centers, these civil society groups. There are very few of them. There's the hope, but we were basically there to start spreading the word back here in America, how we can prevent this from happening. And what was undeniable was the connection between the conflict mineral trade and the violence. It's a direct conduit.
Fidel, rape is a weapon of war. It's not the war itself.
It's never been.
And I mean, do these women, do the people who are suffering as a result of this war understand that there's a bigger picture here and that there's such a complex war going on? There's so many factors that need to be addressed before things like rape can stop.
Well, I think these women, they are quite courageous, and that's why we think of them as survivors. And as you can see, they are human beings like you and me and Mama Robin here. And going through this everyday life, they have that hope that, okay, whatever they might have gone through, there is hope. And yes, as you said, rape has been used as a weapon. In my culture, in my languages, we have no word such as rape. I speak Swahili, Kinyarwanda, Lingala, 13 languages at least. But none of these languages have the word rape in it. So it has been used spontaneously by people wanting to control the world and showing other people that, okay, we have power over you.
Robin, it's talking about raising awareness, particularly here in the United States. Powerful countries need to find some sort of political solution. There is a UN peacekeeping force in Congo, MONUSCO, 20,000 strong, including uniformed men and others. Last year there was an incident in Luvungi where 150 women and children were raped, literally steps away from the UN camp. And the UN said they only found out about it 10 days later. Is that not a scathing indictment of any effort that's been attempted in trying to address the issue there on the ground?
It's twofold, the answer. I mean, we can argue both sides, but having been there and gone to the IDP camps and been to the UN bases, They are providing housing. Mind you, it's rice bags as tents. But once they leave that camp, they're on their own. They don't have the security beyond what's inside the walls. Also, they don't have a government, a sound foundation to access as international aid. They can't go to them and say, can you join forces with us and protect your people? So they're up against a barrier with their government.
And we're going to get into the government and its actual strength or weakness, and whether the government can effectively operate outside of the capital, Kinshasa. Ahmed, I understand we've got some good feedback.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people on Twitter have been commenting on what you were talking about, which I think is coltan, one of the elements that is used in technology that that's spurring the violence, let's say. But also on Twitter, we have Ashley Incognito saying, wars in Africa and violence against women have never been top priorities for the media. And, you know, knowing that, or assuming that's her position, we also have Peter Ritchie saying, what can foreign civilians, NGOs, as you were talking about, Robin, or politicians do to help the DRC and the region move forward? Is international military intervention necessary?
Well, not necessarily a military interventions. And we have had, as you have been saying here, we have the largest UN peacekeeping mission in the Congo. And it's been about a decade now, but the war is still raging. However, as we have said it, we have a driver of these conflicts, and which goes back even to 2 centuries back, when we had Ruabe market boom here in the Western world, when there was the Second World and the Western world scrambling for Congo uranium that helped build the first atomic bombs that was dropped over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So this has continued.
That colonial legacy, you think, played a role in starting all this in terms of drawing borders?
It does.
Indiscriminately.
And because going back to the colonial era, 10 million people died out of the Belgian King Leopold scrambled control of the minerals in Congo. And nobody spoke about it. So they have silenced people, and this has kept on so far.
Okay. Let's look at the issue of accountability and what's being done to address that and broaden the discussion out. Joining us now by Skype from the DRC capital, Kinshasa, is Sharanjit Parmar. She works for the US-based organization, the International Center for Transitional Justice, and has prosecuted cases of sexual violence in Africa. Thanks a lot for joining us, Sharanjit. Welcome to the stream. Let's talk a little bit about the culture of impunity. When you have so many belligerents involved, when everybody is effectively raping, from the militias who are against the government, the militias that cross the border from Rwanda, the militias that are with the government, the soldiers of the government themselves, when everybody's raping, how do you hold people to account?
Well, I think you've hit the nail right on the head. And it's important to note that rape just isn't, it isn't the only serious violation that's being committed against the civilian population. It's one of many. People are losing their livelihoods, they're losing access to their farms, they're unable to support their families. Over 1.5 million Congolese are now displaced at present in Eastern Congo as a result of the actions of the groups that you've just mentioned. And not only for the International Center for Transitional Justice, but also with our Congolese partners, we've been strongly advocating for the need to fight impunity. And it's a huge fight to be undertaken for a number of reasons. First of all, unfortunately, the Congolese justice system is in a terrible state of disrepair after not only years of war, but also a kleptocratic regime under the previous dictator Mobutu, and even under colonial times. And I think Fidel's point about the colonial legacy is important, but it also is a responsibility of the Congolese government to hold these perpetrators responsible, especially when they're members of the Congolese army or members of militias that have recently been integrated in the Congolese army.
It's interesting. Sorry, Sharanjit, sorry to interrupt you, but Joseph Kabila often says it's untrue to claim that he doesn't have control of the entire country. Well, if he does have control of the whole country, then surely he's responsible for a lot of what takes place, particularly in the east of the country. So, it's one or the other. Either he doesn't have control, or if he does, he must face the consequences for some of these actions. Do you agree with that?
I think it's in effect a mix of both. Congo is an enormous country. It's actually larger than Western Europe, and unfortunately, the colonial and post-colonial legacy is that state institutions are very weak. So, it's one thing to say it's one thing to have the political will in place if it's there. But if it's there, we're going to need a huge effort, not only by the Congolese government, but the international community to rehabilitate the justice system. And unfortunately, right now, the legal framework isn't even in place for Congolese courts to prosecute these perpetrators. They are only able to go in front, or prosecutors are only able to put them in front of military courts, which do not, unfortunately, operate independently or impartially. So a first place for Joseph Kabila to start, if he's serious about addressing impunity for not only cases of sexual violence, but other gross violations, is to start with reforming the security sector and strengthening the military justice system. That means vetting known perpetrators of war crimes, including Bosco Ntaganda, who is wanted by the International Criminal Court to face counts of war crimes, and other known perpetrators that are currently sitting quite comfortably in the Congolese army. Not only are they responsible for violations that are continuing today, but they've been responsible for violations throughout Congo's wars. So if you're able to do whatever you want during war, what's to stop you from continuing doing that right now?
Fair point.
In
And,
the
yes,
east of the country?
and to confirm, yes, there was an arrest warrant issued by the ICC for the rebel leader Bosco Ntaganda. Robin, from what you experienced there, do you feel that justice is almost, in a way, a pipe dream for many of these women, because first and foremost, they're just trying to survive?
Exactly. It's not even a concept for them. A big part of this revolution that I think Fidel's trying to start is to bring the concept of critical thinking to the society. No education, and the dismantling of your family. Once you take the woman out of the home, the families evaporate, and then you have no community. So
well, if I can just add a footage on that, and I totally agree with the host we have from Kinshasa. She made a great point. Congolese people, as we are mainly, largely responsible for what has been going on. And let's not blame it all to the colonial power and everybody. It's been 50 years now that we had independence. I think whatever we might have suffered, it is enough for us to say, okay, let's go forward, but we haven't.
You're talking about going forward, Ahmed. There's some tweets coming in regarding the elections that are coming ahead.
Precisely. You were saying that the concept of justice isn't really even an issue or like on their minds. What about the elections? Fidel, perhaps you know they're scheduled for late November. We have Nishaligon on Twitter saying, how much do elections for a leader in Kinshasa matter for a conflict that's over 1,000 miles away in Kivu? So perhaps you can tell us, how much do the elections matter?
Well, this is going to be a process.
Right.
And remember, when you're introducing this show, you called my country the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a little bit funny, right? But, well, let's take it so. It's democratic. And I think we have to build this democracy.
Right.
We have had last election back in 2006, which was great. I think we're in a process of learning, and we can do it otherwise. We're going to have to cope with all the discrepancies and the flaws and everything, but let's go for that. However, the upcoming elections, I think there are big challenges, big concerns regarding all the promises that have been made, peace, jobs, and everything, just the basics. We haven't gotten them so far. And I'm not being critical of my president here, but I think if you check his speech to the nation last year, you're going to see the read himself he made of his actions in office. No, it's almost zero effect on the ground.
I want to go to Sharanjit and talk about the issue of raising awareness. Not only the awareness created by having stars like Robin Wright showing the world that there's something seriously wrong going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo and something needs to be done about it. But people like yourself who are in Kinshasa at the moment, speaking to us via Skype, other NGO workers who post things on Facebook, on their blogs, on their tweets, given the failure in general of the mainstream media to address the issue in Congo, how important is it for people to use untraditional means in order to put the message out and to just get people to engage on an intellectual level before they even start thinking about what they feel about the conflict?
Well, first of all, I think social media can play a critical role in addressing some of the issues that have been discussed on this show today. As it's clear, the situation in the Congo is incredibly complex, and unfortunately, the international community has ignored or not understood these complexities, and both have led to some serious failures on the part of the international community to respond to what's going on. And it's important to note that the bulk of the Congolese budget is actually made up of international aid, and that represents a huge amount of leverage for the international community to address some of these issues. The question is understanding those issues, and social media can provide a really great opportunity for Congolese, not only for actors such as myself who feel fortunate enough to work here and to work with fantastic people in the field, but for Congolese themselves to tell the world what's happening in their country. To a lot of our partners recently in the run-up to the November elections are experiencing threats and intimidation. Social media, I think, is an important way for them to communicate what's their situation to the world so that they can get the safety and other needs that are put into place to protect them and their families. I think it's fantastic. Yesterday, for the first time since I've been working in the Congo, I actually received a mass text message we haven't been able to ascertain who sent the message, which organization sent the message, possibly because it was so sensitive, but essentially calling on the Congolese people to push the government to arrest Bosco and Taganda. So you already have nascent attempts by Congolese civil society, and certainly shows like this and other internationally supported social media initiatives would be so important to giving voices to the Congolese people and empowering them to take on these issues.
Sharanjit, I want to interrupt you and stop you there because we are running out of time. There's a minute and a half left on the TV show. We'll continue the discussion in the post-show, so stay where you are, stay connected. Robin, I want you to wrap up for us on the TV show. In terms of lobbying, if there's one priority for the political elites, particularly here in Washington, to focus on with regards to Congo, what is it?
It is to literally, our soundbite, we need to put the pressure on Hillary Clinton, our Secretary of State. She is the only person that can convene these parties, the regional governments, us, so that these regulations can be put in place, so that certification, traceability schemes can actually be implemented before any of this can take place that she was mentioning. All great, but we actually need to have it legitimized, the traceability.
Yeah. Nothing can change without a political solution. Fidel, I know you want to come in, but we have run out of time. Yeah. Robin, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Fidel,
much.
Thank you very much for joining us on the stream. I know you're going to stay where you are because the conversation will continue in the post-show. Ahmed, you don't go away as well. Thanks for watching the stream. If you want to continue the conversation, stream.aljazeera.com. Welcome back. Stream.aljazeera.com is where you're watching, of course. I hope you've been as engrossed and enthralled by this discussion as I have. Fidel wanted to come in and to dovetail with Robin there and add to what she was saying about the responsibility of the big powers, particularly the United States.
And thank you so much. I would like to call on you to use this opportunity for the world to know what's really going on. What has been the driver? Why justice? Why corruption? Why education? Why health? Why the army? Everything is collapsing in Congo. Why that?
I've got a map up here regarding the conflict minerals.
Perfect.
Now you've got a list of minerals here on the left-hand side of the screen: diamonds, gold, coltan, copper, cobalt, tin, manganese, lead, and zinc. And no surprises that the bulk of them are found in the Kivu region in the east of the country. This is where many of these militias go to the mines and act as, in a way, private contractors for many people, don't they?
Exactly. And without saying that, minerals is the only cause of a conflict in Congo, because we have ethnic tensions, we have everything that is not working, and that can be a root, to the problem. However, since 1996, when we had an influx of refugees coming in, about 2 million, we have had people reaping up profits over minerals, claiming to come for security, to crack down on the Hutu combatants and everybody. You have myriad of armed groups. All they claim to protect civilians and to protect their land, natural resources. But in the end, they end up scrambling for these minerals. So, what the international community can do, or world powers can do, I think it's to address, first of all, this issue, without, of course, ignoring others, that we need to continue urging efforts like by our guest from Kinshasa. We need to work on security sector reform, elections and everything, right? But this issue of conflict minerals, it needs to be addressed. It is not, then we're hitting into the wall.
Fidel, on that note, I just want to try and tie the point you're making to some of what Sharanjit was talking about in terms of the importance of social media. We have Laurentine Amaliza actually posting something on Facebook in the context of the show talking about what you just said. I'll just read a part of it. She mentions coltan at the top. She says it's tainted with the blood of these victims. But then she says, as well as the not-so-invisible hand of the cruel dictator of a small neighboring country, Rwanda, Mr. Paul Kagame, who is sustaining this horrifying situation in order to exploit the rich soils of the Congo. She goes on to say, that he visited France and it was barely covered again by the mainstream, and that there was a lot of Rwandans living in exile in Europe and Congolese who came out to protest. Now, I think the question is, is it true, these accusations of, Paul Kagame, and how do the neighboring countries factor into the crisis in Congo?
Well, I don't want to go directly on naming people here.
Yeah.
Myself being born and grown up in Goma, and these are facts, are things that you know, and no need for me here to be crying out against somebody here.
Right.
But this is real fact, as it has been put by our host here. It's been 17 years we have had the Hutu combatants rebel movement in Congo. What has really been done to dismantle those people and take them back to their country? Why they do not just have talks, peace talks like we had back in 2002, and we came to a transitional government in Congo? Why that is not happening? But the question you're putting, why even the media are not paying attention to this?
Right.
Well, I think again, those who are reaping profits, companies, but also my local people, the local mining industry, they have this kind of power, and when they come here to the US, it's to show, okay, there is no problem.
Okay. Let's ask Sharanjit for her thoughts on that. Would you say that from everything you know, it's consistent with what Fidel is saying, that it's in the interest of so many people, business-wise, to sustain the conflict in the Eastern DRC?
I'm afraid it's sad but true, and one of the legacies of the successive wars during the 90s in Congo is that state institutions, which are already weak, are even weaker, and unfortunately, it's not only these proxy militias that are left from the war and had been supported by regional interests. But they're also an immensely complicated network of criminal gangs that are operating in smuggling, that have links with warlords such as Bosco Ntaganda and others that are operating in the Congo. So it's not just a question of regional interests, but they're a very complex web at play in the field as well. And unfortunately, that is embedded in what Fidel already referred to, his years of legacy of local level conflicts over political issues, economic interests, as well as social ethnic clashes. So you have multiple cleavages, and that's why the point about the importance that social media can play in unpacking some of that complexity. I can't put a figure, a value on it. It's really important, and that information is needed so that we can come up with adequate solutions.
As this conversation expands and contracts, I want to recoil a little bit and go back to the issue of rape as a weapon of war. And there's a video I'm going to play from YouTube. It's from a 2006 HBO film where you have these former Mai Mai fighters who are being interviewed, and they're explaining why they rape. Let's just get a taste of this. So for the sake of Sharanjit, this particular gentleman saying, when we see a woman in a bush, we haven't seen women for a while, so we just go ahead and do that. Another one is justifying it, saying before raping them, I ensure that she's healthy. I just look at her, I can tell if she's sick or not. I mean, it's kind of harrowing, and almost in a way it's almost absurd watching some of this, watching some of the justification for rape. It goes on a little bit later on where some of these soldiers talk about the fact that if it was their sister or their mother, it's a different story. I'll kill the guy if it was my sister or my mother, but for me it's different. I'm a man, don't you understand? Robin, when you see something like that, how does it make you feel?
I am a mother, I'm a daughter, and of course it's one of the things that absolutely propels you into action, to want to bring peace to these people. But this was so impactful. On this video piece, they asked one of the soldiers, he was probably 15 years of age, okay, fine, we know the corruption, we know you're part of the militia, we know that it's your job to go in and dismantle, and why rape the women? Why? Leave them alone. Okay, you're going to take the husband, you're going to take the son, but why rape the women? And why in succession, men in succession rape, and then the final rapes with the gun, where she's completely incapacitated. And they interviewed that kid, and they said, why would you do that? Why would you destroy her for life? And he said, because women are Mother Earth. They are the power. They're the highest power. And if I rape her, I attain that power. And if I then rape her with my AK-47, the next man won't attain her power. So it's all about control.
And Fidel, some of the other issues vestigially linked to this, given the history of the conflict, at the height of the conflict, there were many reports of those that are deemed pygmies in the jungles, eaten by certain militias, men raped as well. When you see all this brutality and inhumanity as a result of the conflict, my question to you is, where do you begin in trying to psychologically reform a society?
That's a very good question. And, but before I come to that, I think we need to understand why these people are pushed to go and raid villages. Why do they set entire villages on fire? To control the wealth. That's the answer. Again,
it's very medieval in many ways. You read it in the history books.
Exactly.
But you don't expect it in the 21st century.
Good. However, do we put all these people in jail to rehabilitate them mentally? Maybe, maybe not. But I think if we come to address effectively this issue of taking out the incentive, making sure that people like Bosco Ntaganda, as our guest has been saying, and everybody comes to the rail of traceability, transparency, this is going to give us room, as civil society speaking, of course, it's going to give us room even to claim to have other things. And I think if we have an accountable government in place, that issue is going to be easy. See how much violence has happened in Rwanda. Isn't today Rwanda praised for being an economy model in the region? It is. But we have thousands and thousands of genocides. But the country is rebuilding. So I don't think it's fatal that we can't rebuild the country. We can, despite what has happened.
If I may, just on the last note here, we have Luna Heredia on Facebook, Robin, wanting to ask you this question. Considering your craft and your career, she says, sometimes movies can help a lot of people to realize political, social, and all kinds of worldwide problems. We spoke about the mainstream media not covering this, so maybe, you know, movies can fill that gap. So the question right here, have you ever thought of making a movie about the Congo situation, whether you act or produce or whatever?
We made a mini documentary when we were together. I would like to go back numerous times, frankly, because this trip was just about absorption and shock. And now that I'm becoming, I feel like a member of this family, and I would love to go back and actually document it in a film and just make it viral.
That's the way to do
you know,
it.
and one of the things about Rwanda, we were mentioning Rwanda, one of the only bits of education most people in the West have had is the film Hotel Rwanda with Don Cheadle.
Right.
So not even in a documentary sense, the power of fiction based on historical events has immense potency.
And it's so current because we are directly involved as consumers.
Yeah.
Internationally, we're directly involved, so that's a current affair right there we can tap into.
Many people are tweeting in that there's this untold story people seem to have learned even from this show, that, you know, the use of coltan and all these minerals and technology.
That's good. But one point to that.
And final point, because we need to wrap up soon.
As part of human beings, it should be your duty to be hosting, because, okay, movie can make a difference, right? But also, I think having these kind of occasions on media, on shows, people testifying, that's something should be encouraged. And let me put a shout out to Al Jazeera, because this is the first time for me to see something like this. So you are guys to be encouraged, really.
Well,
and
welcome.
thank you so much for
Great.
this.
What a
You're
great
welcome.
forum
And if you can give
this
us some access to Eastern DRC, we'll do some more.
Many people are already tweeting saying world media needs to be bold enough to maintain the Congo story as a top item.
We'll be doing
Yay.
that. Okay. Ahmed, Fidel, Robin, great pleasure
Thank you so
having
much.
you all. It was a fascinating discussion. I hope we built up at least a semblance of awareness. Sharanjit, who joined us via Skype from Kinshasa as well. Thank you very much, Sharanjit Parmar. It was good getting your perspective, and we wish you all the best in Kinshasa with your work. Well, there you have it. That was the DRC, rape as a weapon of war, and everything that was related to it. We cannot begin to discuss it or even begin to solve it in 45 minutes. I think we'll need much more time, but at least we did something. Thanks a lot once again, everybody. And don't forget, you can watch a rerun of this on stream.aljazeera.com. It will be reposted in about 2 hours' time. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.